Good morning, Benjamin Hadfield here, technical dive instructor with Teach Me Dive. Today we're doing an unboxing and a public trial of the new DSX. Yes, I'm sorry that there's a ring light that I use to make my face look this pretty. Yes, I do it just to make you love me that much more. But anyway, I digress. Today we're trying out the new Apeks DSX. We're doing a little bit different. We're gonna do a head to head to head. Yes, that's right. We're doing the three heads. I'm sorry. But we're also comparing it to my old sturdy standard, the old daddy, the big daddy, the Shearwater Perdix. I love my Perdix, absolutely. And if you know me well enough, you know I've been diving this for years. This particular computer, I would guess, has somewhere in the neighborhood about 2,000 dives on it. 2000, I don't know. It's got a crap load, right? I've been using it for a long time. It was my first Perdix. It's special to me. So anyway, if you know me long enough, you know that I love my Perdix. We are also going to check in on the Mark II-i, the Garmin Mark II-i. I've been diving this for about 2 years now. 1,500 dives, I guess, 1,000 dives, something like that. And on a side note, a couple of marathons, a couple of half marathons. So it's definitely been a workhorse and a half. It's been a pretty great, simple watch. My issue with this watch is simply that it is small and harder to read. It's great for air temp, or your gas pressure, for air temp, for depth, for simple things like that. But as you can see, when you get underwater, it can be a little difficult to see. So anyway, I love it. It's a great, great, great daily. It's got a nice, simple, rechargeable back. The advantage to the Perdix, in my opinion, is you have this little battery compartment, sing, bing, bing, bang, bing, and you slap a AA battery in, available at any store worldwide. I don't care if you're in Palau, or if you're in communist Russia or the United States, wherever you choose to dive, you can probably find a AA battery. And as you can see, I have the one set up a little bit more advanced mode, and you might be wondering, T1, T2, yes, I only dive the twin sets or the back mount when I absolutely have to, and I've got no other choice. But we digress, because side mount is king. I'm just gonna leave that right there. If you don't like it, tell me in the comments. Anyway, we're gonna be adding the DSX to this mix of cavalcade of values, and you can see I do have that set up in side mount as well, but I will be running this in twin set mode so we can compare them all three. What we've done is I've taken my handy dandy twin sets and I've added a pod for the DSX. And now, just in case, because we believe in safety, I've also added an SPG. That is an Apeks SPG as well. I've got it hooked up on a little bolt snap, nice and simple. I'll just clip that to my top, just to be safe, just to be sure. That's on my left tank hose. And on my right tank hose, I've got my little Mork and Alien setup here. This is on my right tank setup. I've got a pod set up for my Shearwater and a pod set up for my Garmin. So what we're gonna be doing for you, we are going to be taking and putting all these three in one place so we can videotape all three, and then we're gonna compare them. And let me know in the comments what you think. Who's gonna win? Is it gonna be the Garmin? I doubt that, to be honest. I think there's a lot of Garmin fans out there. I'm a Garmin fan, but if I had to choose between a Garmin and the Perdix, sorry Garmin, you lose. So anyway, he would definitely lose. But the magic question is, DSX, Apeks, or Shearwater? Dun, 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 the tried and true favorite, the new kid on the block. Now, one of the things I really like, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but as we look at that DSX, nice, bright, clean display, pretty straightforward, nice and simple, easy to operate, big green line on the back. As you can see on the Perdix, nice and simple, easy to read, a lot of information. I do most of my dives in the technical nature. As you know, I like to do my Deco stops. I like to hit that ceiling. Both are very simple and easy to ride. Now I've got about 10 dives already on the DSX, because I believe firmly that you should dive a computer first a few times in simple dives before you say, hey, let's go out and do a 150 for an hour and knock ourselves out for 30 minutes of Deco, because that sounds like a really good idea on a brand new computer I've never tried before and I don't know how to find the ceiling. No, that's not a good idea. Don't do that. Bad, 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 bad idea. Anyway, so I've got about 10 dives on this. I've done some light Deco on this. I think the biggest amount of Deco I got on this was about 15, 16 minutes. Hit that Deco ceiling on that. So that was my last dive on this. I was diving side mount HP 100s, ton of gas, absolutely. I do have multiple pods for it. It's a great computer. Right out the gate, you're going to notice the screen visibility and how clear it is and easy to see. The first thing to note, the Garmin is really designed to be a surface and a dive computer, so it has a great brightness of screen. Where it starts getting into harder times is that staying bright enough at depth, and where you start getting into the sand patches as well. Now, several times through this dive, you'll notice we hit the sand and we go down, and I definitely kick it up intentionally so that you get an idea what it's going to look like in a lower amount of visibility. Now, the most impressive part about this is watching the DSX. At no point when the sand kicked up and the muck kicked through was I not able to read the DSX. It was very clear, very distinctive, very easy to read. It did have a little bit of problem with reading the pod from here and there, but in its defense, we also had 3 pods going simultaneously, so there certainly was quite a bit of interference. But once it got the pod and had the information for that, it stayed true and stayed very accurate. The other thing to be aware of as we kind of look at through these processes is the depth on each. Now, one of the things just to be aware of, these are 3 separate computers, 3 separate pressure meter gauges on all 3 of them. So, and this is also consumer based. This isn't like scientific, getting out to the 1/10 of 1/1000th of a percent. So they're all going to be off just a little bit. I did notice the greatest difference between the DSX and the Shearwater in terms of overall depth, but it definitely wasn't that far off overall to make a huge amount of change. Now, if you notice on the right, the Shearwater or on the left, the Shearwater is getting ready to go to NDL. The DSX is almost right there, but in the end, it was the Garmin that went to Deco first. And it was interesting to watch the Garmin goes into a Deco. It starts giving you an up count from that point of where it's at and what it's doing with Deco. The next one that went into Deco was obviously the DSX, and it definitely was the most conservative of the 3, but some of that also is based on the fact that it was showing the deepest, and its pressure sensor was the most sensitive of all 3 of them. Over on the left-hand side, the old trusty Shearwater did a great job. It was easy to read. I really like its advanced features. If you notice, I have on the left-hand side in my tripod is the GF99 as well as the temperature, and I've got the surface gradient as well. And that's definitely a handy thing to be able to take a look at to kind of understand where you're at. And as you look at it right now, I'm at 114% of my gradient for surface, which means if I start head to the surface right now and go ahead and pop, I'll be 114% over gradient factor. So my M value is definitely going to have a huge issue at there. Now we're sending back to the process and heading back up on this. Now be aware this video is also sped up 850%, so you didn't have to watch the whole 48-minute dive. Right now we're about 23 minutes into the dive. We're still showing a 30-foot ceiling at 1 minute for the DSX, a 20-foot ceiling at 4 minutes almost for the Garmin. Now it's going down again, and we've got a 20-foot ceiling at 3 minutes for the Shearwater. Again, very clear, easy to read, all 3 of them. The Shearwater and the DSX are really definitely doing the best job overall of them and giving you the most amount of information. If you look on the right-hand side on the DSX, you've got a nice gradient factor. And it's starting to give you an idea where you're at in the gradient factor, and it's pretty accurate overall. Looking at the Shearwater, it's showing that our current GF99 is at 1% at our 41 foot depth. But our surface, it's giving us a nice surface gradient as well to give us an idea. If I were to surface right now, if there were a problem, what would it look like? So we went ahead and, as you notice, the DSX finally cleared through. And now we're at 5 minutes of deco time on the DSX, 4 minutes down. The Garmin is down to 20 feet at 1 minute and going down through the process. Now, part of this kind of thing interesting to watch is how does it actually look when you go into Deco, and what does it actually look like through the process? My overall opinion of the 3, if I had to choose between these 3 computers and I had to choose 2, I would definitely pick the Garmin as last place. I think it's a great recreational watch. I think it does a decent job of monitoring everything when it comes to my overall factors for technical diving. But when it starts getting into the more complicated dives, it's definitely time to step up to something a little more complicated and that's got a better factor overall. It does have the gradient factor on the right hand side. It's got a nice easy read descent meter on the right hand side on the other side as well, so it's definitely easy to work with overall. But in terms of screen brightness and simplicity, the DSX is really just hands down a really nice computer. It does have a simple compass to work with, so it's easy to put together navigation. You've got your partial pressures right there. Everything is just a very simple computer. And as you can see, even when we started getting into those shallow depths where we started getting into that Deco and we started our ascent, it definitely was able to read throughout the process very simply.